21 local government election manifesto in Tshwane today. We now speak to Dr Ntsikelelo Breakfast about the manifestos that have already been launched and what we could possibly expect from the ANC this afternoon. Mr. Breakfast, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Well, with the past manifesto launches by the other political parties, some political analysts have said that they lack depth. So, first of all, before we get to the ANC manifesto that will be launched later on this afternoon, what do you make of the other, the manifesto launches, notably the EFF and Action SA?
Yeah, so first of all, let me start with the one of the DA. It embeds itself within the neoliberal model of development in the sense that the DA subscribes to the notion that in order to improve the living conditions of the people, there must be an elevation of the market forces above the local state. I think that approach is not different from the policies that have been pursued by the ANC at local government level. Because the question is, what have been the policies that have been pursued by the ANC at local government level since 1995? Those policies have been privatization of services or outsourcing, cost recovery mechanism, the triple P model, public-private partnerships, and so that is also the neoliberal package that the DA is also proposing. The only difference in terms of my comparative analysis between the DA and the ANC is the responsiveness of the bureaucracy of the DA on matters of getting the job done with regard to potholes and other administrative issues. Let's face it, many municipalities, in this country we've got about 274 municipalities. The majority of them are governed by the ANC. I can bet my bottom dollar we can go to all of them. They are falling apart. So ANC municipalities, they cannot do basic things, fixing potholes, making sure that there are tar roads and so on. But in terms of policy, the manifesto of the DA does not differ from the policies that have been pursued by the ANC. Now, with regard to Action SA, I think those ones are going to be a dark horse. You must remember Helman Mashaba has an unfinished business in Johannesburg. Some people, maybe they are still holding a grudge against the DA. They don't like the way Musi Maimane was booted out. Maybe they would have wanted Mashaba to continue. So I think some people might not vote for the DA, might vote for Action SA, and I expect that they might do well as well in eThekwini, because I think Mama Khoza is the mayoral candidate there.
Yeah, and just speaking of DA, Mr. Breakfast, do you get a sense that they understand the issues and the problems that people face on a daily basis? And did this manifesto speak to those needs?
The core constituency of the DA, in my opinion, is the white middle class. However, they do understand, though, that there are other structural challenges which are affecting predominantly Black communities, like poverty, unemployment, inequality, and so. So the argument that, like the DA says, they take pride in the fact that they are running one of the best municipalities, if not the best, in Cape Town, is a flawed argument. Because if you go to Cape Town, there are class contradictions. You have another section of the population that is living a good life, and then on the other hand, you have another section of the population that is living a hard life. So I don't think that they are concerned that much, unfortunately, in my opinion, about the living conditions of the majority. That's why sometimes where they govern, there is an argument that no, but why do you want to divert a lot of resources to suburbs, not to townships?
And then the EFF launched its own manifesto yesterday, and I suppose it was launched with so much fanfare. And I suppose then it was also a bold political statement for the EFF to rename its building after late struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela-Mandela, wouldn't you say?
Of course, that is very symbolic. You must remember when Julius Malema and other people were regarded as being ill-disciplined, when they were under siege. Mama Winnie Mandela is one of the people who reached out to him. So I'm sure he feels indebted to her. But I don't think that, in my opinion, will have a positive effect on a large scale to the electorate. I think there are many political parties across the political spectrum that do acknowledge the contribution that the late Mama Winnie made to the liberation struggle of this country.
And then he also mentioned the abolishment of tenders in a EFF-led municipality. How do you envisage that will happen?
That is a very important matter. Why? Because it gives me the impression that the manifesto of the EFF embeds itself in a socialist model of development. Because he also spoke about wealth tax. So that is an antithesis of market fundamentalism, this notion that there must be, an elevation of market forces, that the local state cannot lead development, but development must be led by the market forces. So that is an antithesis of that. But we shall see how it goes. But also, there were other things that were way out of line in that manifesto, like building schools. I mean, have you ever seen a municipality building schools? And the issue of the land reform, yes, that is a very important issue. Land is money, land is the economy. But I don't think that you can roll out land at local government level on a large scale. But on the whole, I think the manifesto stands out. I think it's a very good manifesto.
Well, some people are of the opinion that it is indeed a good manifesto and it speaks to the people. And you just mentioned, a socialist ideology by the EFF. I know that EFF is a leftist party, but would you classify it under a socialist, especially with the comments that he made that if the EFF takes over the municipality, then they will impose a property wealth tax, essentially taxing the wealthier residents of the affluent suburbs to take care of the needs of the poor. That reeks of a socialist stance, doesn't it?
No, of course, it does. My view is that the EFF subscribes to three ideological frameworks. The first one is, black consciousness. We can argue whether they took it from Azapo or not. The second one is Pan-Africanism, what the PAC stands for. And then the third one is socialism. So I expected them to argue the exact opposite of the market forces. I was not taken aback by that. I saw that one coming. Also the idea that if the EFF ascends to power, they are going to build RDP houses in Sentin.
Yeah, tell me more about that, Mr. Breakfast. I mean, does he have a point, though? Or is it simply politicking?
You also pointed out earlier on that they are a leftist organization. So they have to, respond to the plight of the poorest of the poor on the ground, and not come across to be gravitating to the middle class. That's why there was a great deal of emphasis on the working class, the people who are economically marginalized. Also, one of the things that he impressed me on was the fact that he made reference to young people, women, members of LGBTQI. That is extremely important. Why? Because one of the things that COVID-19 has done was to affect those social categories in a big way. So I think that was also very strategic. But you can see that the focus is on those social categories that have been historically marginalized.
Do you get a sense that these local government elections and the manifesto launches are simply a ploy to deliver basic services to the people, or is it simply a clash of ideologies? I mean, on the one hand, President Cyril Ramaphosa has been accused of being a capitalist, and that the ANC has been accused of turning its back on the emerging middle class here in South Africa, and the EFF seems to be boldly gunning for the socialist gap that has ostensibly been created by President Cyril Ramaphosa's presidency.
The first thing that comes to the mind of any politician is power. Because if you want to operationalize your ideas, you have to have power. So all political parties, they want power.
Yes.
Some might talk about things that cannot be operationalized practically. Some have experience in governing at local government level, and they understand the ins and outs. For instance, the manifesto of the ANC, I think, though it has not been unveiled, I think it will revolve around the conception of a developmental local government, meaning that the role of local government is not only to collect the garbage, but is to promote development and so on, because they understand those anti-poverty strategies, IDPs and the LEDs, and so, though they have fallen short in terms of promoting development. But between the EFF and the ANC and the DA, I'm talking about the top three political parties, there are ideological clashes there. The president, as you pointed out earlier on, I think, I can't remember when it was, over the weekend or 2 weeks ago, he was turned away by the residents of Soweto, and they were on point. I'm saying this because it's the ANC government that has been pursuing anti-poor policies of privatization of services, cost recovery mechanism that now you must buy electricity in advance. And those are the policies that have made the people of Soweto not to have electricity and water.
But am I correct to opine then, Dr. Breakfast, that the local government elections are solely about the delivery of services? People need water, they need electricity, they need houses, they need toilets, they need roads. And it's not really about ideological clashes. It's not really about policies and so on and so forth.
Yeah. You cannot talk politics and not talk ideology.
Okay.
You cannot talk policy and not talk ideology. All policies are informed by certain models of development. That's why I said earlier on that if you look at the model that the manifesto of the DA embeds itself in, is a neoliberal model. So that model will then guide the development policy of the DA. The same goes to the ANC and the EFF. So I tend to differ with you on this one, that we can talk politics and not talk ideology.
All right, let's talk about the ANC then. Is it clutching at straws to win back the voters? Do you still believe that there are still those voters who look at the ANC as the ANC of Nelson Mandela or the ANC of OR Tambo, or do they still look at the ANC as the party that has failed the people?
My view is that, as you know, in this country we've got about 8 metropolitan municipalities which belong to category A. I think the ANC is only going to get 3. The one in eThekwini, the one in Buffalo City, though even that one is debatable, and then maybe the other one in Free State. I don't think that they will bounce back to Nelson Mandela Bay and Johannesburg and in other places. Now, on the whole, you have about 274 municipalities. I think the ANC is going to get the majority of those ones because the electoral base of the ANC is found in rural areas. I don't think that base has been eroded. The political longevity of liberation movements, it tends to be extended. The greatest advantage of the ANC is its collective memory. I think some people still have historical attachments to the ANC. When you invoke the name of the late Tata Mandela, Oliver Tambo, and all other heroes and heroines of the ANC, that does have a psychosocial effect to some people. And you know, you use your liberation struggle credentials. So the ANC does benefit. That's why the ANC doesn't want to let go of describing itself as a liberation movement, because they benefit out of that. But I don't think that in urban centers that explanation is going to sit well with the vote. Why? Because in urban centers you have a large middle class, like in Joburg. You have a lot of rational voters who vote in relation to public policy issues, not in relation to the liberation struggle.
When President Cyril Ramaphosa gave a preview of the ANC manifesto that will be launched later on today, he said that they are now, just to quote him verbatim, he said the young candidates would bring a far deeper understanding of the needs of young people, and said that the party was pinning its hopes on the younger voters. Is this who the ANC banks its hopes on, that they will change the fortunes of the party, the younger people?
I think that is a strategic move, which is meant to respond to the issue of youth political apathy, which started in 1999 when young people started to withdraw from electoral participation. Though I think the issue of youth political apathy is a global phenomenon. So I think at a strategic level, in a way that does motivate other young voters to go and cast their votes, I think it's a good move. But some of the challenges of the ANC, they are very discouraging, to some of even the die-hard supporters of the ANC to go and vote for the ANC again. But to answer your question, yes, I think the move was strategic. I think it was a clever move. But we shall see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how it goes. And the ANC has posited itself as, a party that is self-cleansing, that is, on a journey of renewal. Will this perhaps help the party, or does the party just need to go back to the drawing board and see what the people needs are and then start delivering the basic services that the people so desperately need?
Throughout history, the ANC has had different phases of conflicts. But the difference between now and then is that the conflicts within the ANC at the moment are not ideological per se. They have to do with who stands a chance of benefiting the material gains. And this is something that even former President Beki spoke about, even Ntate Kwere Mantashe, that some people want to use the ANC as a vehicle to make ends meet, to live a good life. The problem that the ANC has had is lack of political education. My view is that it takes 5 years to produce a solid comrade. But some of the cadres of the ANC, they don't strike me as people who are politically grounded, though they can use slogans here and there. So the ANC needs to focus on the issue of political education. You cannot deploy people who don't understand what the party stands for or what the party is about. So if they can fix that problem, then maybe that might have a positive spillover effect in terms of the services that need to be rendered.
Right. Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, political analyst, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, sir.
That is political analyst Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, just sharing with us his thoughts and his views on the manifesto launches that other parties have had, and just a preview to the ANC manifesto launch by the ANC later on today. This is the agenda on SABC News. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.